Welcome to Chapter 1, Introduction to the Human Body. This chapter is the foundation for the rest of anatomy and physiology. So whether you're studying anatomy and physiology for the first time or reviewing key concepts for future careers in health, this chapter introduces the basic terms, structures, and principles you'll need to understand the body. We'll begin by defining what anatomy and physiology are and how they are related to each other. Then we'll explore how the body is organized from the smallest chemical building blocks up to the entire organism. We'll also cover the major organ systems, the concepts of homeostasis, and how to use anatomical terminology to describe locations and functions clearly. This chapter also introduces medical language, including prefixes, suffixes, and root words, which will help you interpret terms throughout the entire semester. Understanding these basics is key for success in both this class and any other health science program you will pursue. Let's dive in. To begin understanding the human body, we must define two foundational sciences, anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the study of structure. It tells us what the body is made of, where everything is located, and how the parts relate to one another. Anatomy can be gross, meaning it's visible to the naked eye, or microscopic, such as cellular and tissue level anatomy. There's also developmental anatomy, which studies structural changes over time, like those seen in embryology. Physiology, on the other hand, focuses on how these parts function. It explains the how and the why of bodily processes, how your heart pumps blood, how your kidneys filter waste, or how your neurons transmit signals. We can divide physiology into cell physiology, systemic physiology, or even pathophysiology, which focuses on disease states. The relationship between structure and function is fundamental. Form follows function. For example, the thin, flat shape of the alveoli in the lungs maximize gas exchange. Heart valves are shaped to open and close efficiently with each heartbeat. You can't fully understand one field without the other. That's why we study them together. A solid grasp of both is critical for careers in healthcare and biomedical sciences. The entire human body is a complex structure, but it is highly organized in a clear hierarchy from the simplest chemical components to the entire organism. We start with the chemical level, which includes atoms like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, the building blocks of life. These atoms combine to form molecules such as water, proteins, and carbohydrates, and DNA. Next is the cellular level. Cells are the smallest unit of life, and each type has specialized function. For instance, muscle cells contract to allow movement, while nerve cells transmit signals. At the tissue level, groups of similar cells come together to perform specific tasks. The body has four basic tissue types: epithelial, which covers surfaces; connective tissue, which supports and connects; muscle tissue, which enables movement; and nervous tissue, which communicates signals. The organ level includes structures made up of at least two types of tissues, usually more, that work together to perform complex functions. For example, the stomach contains muscles, epithelial, and nervous tissue. Organ systems are groups of organs with a shared purpose. The digestive system, for example, includes the mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestines, and more. Finally, all systems work together to form the organism level, a complete human being capable of surviving and adapting. Let's begin by looking at the three systems responsible for support, movement, and protection. The integumentary system is the outer covering, mainly the skin, but also includes hair, nails, and glands. It protects deeper tissues, helps regulate body temperature, and produces vitamin D, which exposed to sunlight. It also houses sensory receptors and forms a barrier against infection. The skeletal system, including bones, joints, and connective tissues like cartilage and ligaments. It provides the structural framework for the body, protects internal organs like the brain and the lungs, and is the essential for movement because muscles pull on bones. It also stores calcium and other minerals and produces blood cells in the bone marrow, a process called hematopoiesis. The muscular system allows for voluntary movement through contractions of skeletal muscle. Muscles also stabilize the joints and maintain posture. An often overlooked function is the thermoregulation, when your cold shivering generates heat through muscle contractions. All three systems, skin, bones, and muscles, work together to provide the body with physical integrity, mobility, and defense. This group of systems is involved in communication, regulation, and internal coordination. The nervous system is the body's control center. It includes the brain, spinal cord, nerves, and sensory organs. It monitors internal and external environments, processes sensory input, and triggers quick responses, such as pulling on your hands away from the hot stove. It's fast, precise, and short term in effect. The endocrine system uses chemical messengers called hormones. Unlike the nervous system, it works slowly but has a long lasting effect. Glands like the pituitary, thyroid, and adrenal glands release hormones into the bloodstream. The cardiovascular system transports blood through the body. The heart pumps blood through a closed system of arteries, capillaries, and veins. This system distributes blood and oxygen and nutrients to tissues, carries away waste products like carbon dioxide, and also plays a role in immune response and temperature regulation. All three systems collaborate to maintain homeostasis by coordinating bodily functions and responses. These systems support the body by managing fluid balance, gas exchange, waste removal, and reproduction. The lymphatic system returns leaked fluid from tissues back to the bloodstream, helping maintain blood volume. It also houses immune cells that detect and destroy pathogens. The immune system, though not a discrete structure, overlaps with lymphatics and includes white blood cells and immune organs like the thymus and the spleen. The respiratory system brings oxygen into the lungs and removes carbon dioxide. It includes the nasal passages, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. Gas exchange occurs in the alveoli. It also helps regulate body temperature and blood pH by controlling carbon dioxide levels. The digestive system breaks down food into absorbable units and eliminates undigestible material. Organs include the stomach, small intestines, large intestines, and accessory organs like the liver and pancreas, and which aid in digestion and nutrient processing. The urinary system filters blood and removes nitrogenous waste as urine. It also plays a major role in the electrolyte balance, blood pressure regulation, and pH maintenance. Finally, the reproductive system ensures continuation of the species. It includes sex organs like the reproductive gametes of the egg and the sperm, as well as the structures for fertilization like fetal development. In females, the uterus supports embryonic and fetal growth. Human life depends on a set of essential functions that keep us alive and adaptable. Organization refers to the structural hierarchy going from atoms to molecules, molecules to cells, and so on. Metabolism includes both anabolic and catabolic reactions that sustain life. When we refer to anabolic, we are building up, and catabolic, we are breaking down. Responsiveness is key to survival, whether withdrawing from painful stimuli or adjusting internal physiology to changes in temperature. Movement is not just about walking, but it also includes the processes like the beating of the heart, movement of blood, or migration of white blood cells. Growth involves not just getting larger, but also accumulating new materials and replacing cells. Development refers to the progression of changes, physical, functional, and structural, that occur during lifetime. Differentiation is part of this, where unspecialized cells become specialized with unique roles. Finally, reproduction allows life to continue beyond the individual, ensuring genetic material is passed on as species evolve over time. Together, these functions highlight that human life is not just static, but dynamic and ongoing changes at both individual and population levels. Oxygen is essential because it allows cells to extract energy efficiently through aerobic respiration. Without it, survival is measured in minutes. Nutrients provide both the energy and raw materials for building and repairing tissues. Macronutrients are needed in large amounts, while micronutrients are needed in small amounts, but are just as critical. Temperature regulation is also crucial. If the body is too hot, proteins denature. If it is too cold, reactions slow down. Homeostasis keeps these factors within life-supporting ranges. Atmospheric pressures make breathing possible. Without it, oxygen cannot enter the lungs effectively. Hydrostatic pressures, generated largely by the heart, pushes blood through vessels and allows nutrients, like gases and waste, to move in and out of the cell. Homeostasis ties everything together. It ensures oxygen, nutrients, temperature, and pressure stay within ranges compatible with life. These conditions are highly controlled by feedback systems to keep them functioning properly. Homeostasis was one of the most important concepts in physiology. It refers to the body's ability to maintain stable internal conditions even when the external environment changes. It doesn't mean everything stays constant, but rather that the body works to help keep variables like temperature, pH, and blood glucose within specific healthy ranges. Think of homeostasis as a dynamic equilibrium, which is a constant shifting balance. For example, your body temperature may fluctuate slightly through the day, but your brain keeps it close to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. If you get too hot or too cold, mechanisms like sweating or shivering activate to restore balance. Controlled conditions include blood pressure, respiratory rate, hydration levels, blood sugar, and more. These are continuously monitored by sensors in the body, especially in the nervous system, which provide fast responses, and the endocrine system, which handles slower long-term regulations via hormones. Homeostatic control mechanisms involve monitoring, communication, and adjustment. When something falls out of the range, the body detects and changes, sends a signal to the control center, which is usually the brain, and triggers the appropriate response. This process is automatic, happening every second of every day, and is essential for survival. To maintain homeostasis, the body relies on a feedback system. The system has three key components. First is the receptor, which detects the changes in the environment. These are often specialized sensory cells or nerve endings and constantly monitor variables like temperature or pH. Next, the control center, typically the brain or the endocrine organ, receives input from the receptor. It processes the information and decides what needs to be done to maintain the balance. It sends instructions to the effector, which is the muscle, gland, or tissue that actually carries out the response to restore homeostasis. Let's use the body's temperature as an example. If your body temperature rises above the normal range, thermoreceptors on the skin and brain detect the change. The hypothalamus, which is a region in the brain, acts as a control center and sends signals to effectors like sweat glands and blood vessels. The sweat glands increase activity to cool you down, while blood vessels dilate to help release heat. All feedback systems follow the same pattern: detect, decide, respond. It's an elegant built-in monitoring and regulation system that allows the body to adapt to internal and external changes. Negative feedback is the most common feedback mechanism in the body. This is the type of system the response reduces or eliminates the original stimulus. This helps bring conditions back to normal range and promotes stability. For example, if your body temperature increases due to exercise, negative feedback mechanisms kick in to bring back down. This response, sweating and vasodilation, reverses the initial stimulus, which was overheating. Another classic example is blood glucose regulation. After eating, blood glucose levels rise. The pancreas releases insulin, which causes body cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. This lowers your blood sugar levels, bringing it back down to normal. When levels drop too low, the pancreas releases glucagon instead to raise them. In the bloodstream, in blood pressure control, baroreceptors detect high pressure and signal the brain, which then causes the heart rate to slow and blood vessels to relax. Again, the response counters the stimulus. Negative feedback keeps variables within healthy ranges, preventing overcorrection and dangerous fluctuations. Without it, even small changes could spiral out of control. That's why nearly all homeostatic regulations in the body operate via negative feedback. Unlike negative feedback, positive feedback amplifies the original stimulus rather than reversing it. It pushes the body further from the normal set point on purpose, but only for a short time. Positive feedback loops are designed to achieve a specific outcome quickly. Once the goal is reached, the loop stops. A classic example is childbirth. As labor begins, stretch receptors in the cervix detect pressures from the baby's head. This signals the brain to release oxytocin, a hormone that causes the uterus to contract. These contractions push the baby further down, which cause more pressure, which releases more oxytocin. creating a cycle. This continues until the baby is delivered and pressure is relieved, stopping the loop. Another example is blood clotting. When blood vessel is damaged, platelets stick to the side of the release chemicals that attack even more platelets. This accelerates clot formation. Once the clot seals the break, the loop stops. Lactation also involves positive feedback. A baby sticking to the breast stimulates nerves endings, which signals the brain to release oxytocin, triggering milk ejection. The cycle continues until feeding stops. Positive feedback is rare in physiology because it can be unstable if unchecked, but when tightly controlled, it is essential for specific biological events that require quick and decisive response. Anatomical terminology isn't meant to confuse, it's here to help us be precise. A term like above the wrist could mean several things, but anterior to the carpal region is exact. These terms are built from ancient Greek and Latin, so their meanings don't change, and they help avoid miscommunication in clinical and academic settings. These are used globally in healthcare to reduce a lot of error, and they are built from roots, prefixes, and suffixes. Like example, when we say the word hyper, we're usually talking about something that is high or above. Tension means pressure, like putting that together. Hypertension means high blood pressure. Just like a map uses north as a reference, we use anatomical position as our constant reference point. No matter how someone is lying or moving, all terms assume that we are standing upright, facing forward with palms forward. This prevents confusion and keeps our descriptions consistent. So when we talk about anatomical position, it's always our feet down on the ground, toes moving forward, thumbs away from the midline, our palms pointing out, and our eyes forward. Always assume that we are talking about an anatomical position. When we say the word supine, that means we are lying face up, and then prone, we are lying face down. These terms let us describe where structures are relative to one another. For example, the heart is medial to the lungs, and your wrist is distal to your elbow. Learning these pairs will help you read and write about anatomy accurately and confidently. So when we're talking about the terms like anterior and posterior, anterior is always in the front, posterior is always in the back. Superior is in reference to above something else. Inferior, something below something else. Medial, we're always talking about the midline, the midline being the middle of the body. When we're talking about something that is lateral, we're talking about away from that midline. If something is medial, we're going towards it. If it's something is lateral, we're going away from it. The same with proximal versus distal. Proximal means closer to, and then distal means farther away from the trunk. We're usually talking about limbs at this point. When we're using proximal and distal, we're talking limbs. We're not talking the core of the body, we're talking about the limbs. Superficial means near the surface, and then deep means away from the surface, far from the surface. Then we talk about planes. We have different body planes, including sagittal, frontal, and transverse. Think of these planes as imaginary glass sheets slicing through the body. Imaging looks like MRI and CT scans rely on these planes to capture views of organs. Knowing the plane tells you how to interpret the image, whether you're seeing a vertical slice or a horizontal cross section. When we're referencing something that is sagittal, we're basically dividing the body into left and right halves. When we're talking mid-sagittal, it is equal halves right down the midline. Parasagittal means we're dividing into left and right sides, but it is unequal. The frontal or coronal plane divides the body into front and back, and then the transverse plane divides the top and the bottom of the body. So basically right down the middle. The body is organized into different cavities that house major organs. These cavities help protect organs and allow them space to move. For example, your lungs expand into the thoracic cavity, and your intestines shift around the abdominal pelvic cavity during digestion. The dorsal cavity has two main parts: the cranial cavity, which includes the brain, and then the spinal cavity, which includes the spinal cord. The ventral cavity includes two major regions: the thoracic cavity, which is the lungs and the heart, And it also is subdivided into different regions: the pleural region, the pericardial region, and the mediastinum. The abdominal pelvic cavity is divided into the digestive and reproductive organs. Serous membranes act like protective bubbles that wrap for organs. They have a very slippery fluid between the layers to reduce friction, so your lungs can inflate, your heart can beat, and your intestines can move smoothly without irritating the surrounding tissues. So in a double layered membrane, we have the parietal, which lines the cavity wall, and then the visceral, which covers the organ itself. That fluid is called serous fluid, and that helps reduce the friction. The major serous membranes in our body are our pleural membrane, which surrounds the lungs, the pericardial membrane, which surrounds the heart, and the peritoneum, which surrounds the abdominal organs. When diagnosing abdominal pain or locating a mass, we use quadrants or regions to describe what it is. Quadrants are faster, used in emergencies. Regions are more specific, used in anatomy and physiology. For example, the appendix is in the right lower quadrant or right iliac region. When we talk about quadrants, we have four main quadrants. We use the right upper quadrant, RUQ, the left upper quadrant, LUQ, right lower quadrants, and left lower quadrants, which are centered at the umbilicus. Then when we talk about the different regions, we have 9 different regions. These are used for more anatomical precision. We have the right and left. We have the 3 main regions: the hypochondriac, which is up top, the lumbar region, which is in the middle, and then the iliac region, which is lower. And in the center, we have the epigastric, the umbilical, and hypogastric regions. Medical terminology may seem intimidating at first, but it's really just a specialized language built for clarity and precision. It allows the healthcare professional across all disciplines, doctors, nurses, lab techs, therapists, to speak to the same language when describing the human body, diseases, treatments, and procedures. This ensures accurate communication and reduces the chance of errors in patient care. Most medical terms are derived from Greek or Latin, which are no longer changing languages. That makes them more reliable for standardization. For instance, the Latin word cor means heart and gives us the term cardiology, the study of the heart, or pericardium, the sac around the heart. Learning the pattern in medical terms allows you to translate unfamiliar words just by breaking them down. For example, osteomyelitis can be broken down into osteo meaning bone, myel meaning marrow, and itis meaning inflammation, meaning the inflammation of the bone and bone marrow. This system is just for memorization. It's a tool for decoding the complex language of medicine. Mastering this skill builds more confidence and makes it easier to understand anatomy, physiology, and clinical applications, as well as medical terms are built like puzzles using standardized parts. The root word gives the essential meaning, usually a body part or system. For example, cardi means heart, gast means stomach, and neuro means nerve. The prefix comes before the root and often gives context such as time, number, location, or degree. For instance, hypo means below or less than, and brady means slow. So bradycardia means slow heart rate. The suffix comes at the end and usually describes a condition, disease, process, or procedure. Common suffixes include itis for inflammation, ectomy for removal, logi for study. So gastritis means inflammation of the stomach, and neurectomy means surgical removal of the nerve. Sometimes a combining word vowels, usually O, is added between elements to make pronunciation smoother, especially when connecting two root words or roots and suffixes. For example, osteoarthritis combines osteo and arthritis. Once you understand these building blocks, you can take part almost any term and figure out its meaning, even if you've never seen it before. Let's apply what we've learned to real medical terms. First, take cardiology. It breaks down cardi meaning heart and logi meaning the study of the heart. Dermatology follows the same pattern. Derma meaning skin and logi meaning study of the skin. Arthroscopy comes from the arthro meaning joint and scopy, which means to view or examine. This is a real medical procedure where a camera is inserted into the joint, often the knee or shoulder, to diagnose or treatment. Hypoglycemia combines hypo meaning low, glyc meaning sugar, and emia meaning blood condition, giving us low blood sugar. Similarly, nephrectomy combines neph, which means kidney, with ectomy, or removal, meaning surgical removal of the kidney. One more common example is hepatitis. It comes from hepta, meaning liver, and itis, meaning inflammation, so the term means inflammation of the liver, commonly caused by viral infections or toxins. Being able to recognize, break down, and interpret these terms is a powerful tool. It helps you read medical charts, understand instructions, and communicate effectively in any healthcare setting. Don't worry about memorizing every right term now, focusing on recognizing the parts and how they work together. An understanding of anatomy and physiology is essential for everyone working in healthcare. Whether you're a nurse taking blood pressure, or a paramedic responding to trauma, or a medical assistant drawing blood, you're relying on anatomy and physiology knowledge every day. It helps you interpret symptoms, perform accurate assessments, and communicate with clarity and precision. For example, if a patient complains of sharp pain in the lower right quadrant of the abdomen, knowing the anatomy of the region helps you recognize the possibility of appendicitis. When interpreting vital signs, you must understand what temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure reflect in terms of physiological function. You'll also encounter many lab results in patient care, like blood glucose levels or electrolyte panels. Knowing how the kidney regulates sodium or how insulin controls blood sugar makes it easier to understand what those numbers mean for the patient. A&P also helps you explain things to patients. If a patient asks you what a herniated disc is or why they're taking a specific medication, you can also give clear explanation. This builds trust and improves patient outcomes. Most importantly, A&P lays the groundwork for future clinical knowledge, pharmacology, pathology, diagnostics, and more. It's the language and logic behind everything we do in medicine. In 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen made a stunning discovery: invisible rays that could pass through the skin and muscle but not through the bone. He called them X-rays, and then transformed medicine almost overnight. They still used today to diagnose fractures and dental issues, though we now understand the risk of radiation. So X-rays mainly show bones and bone structures. This was widely adopted in the 1900s, and he actually won the Nobel Prize in 1901. Overexposure to X-rays can actually damage your cells. The first X-ray that Wilhelm actually completed was on his wife's hand. Although modern techniques like CT and MRI are more sophisticated, X-rays remain essential in daily practices. They're fast, inexpensive, and effective, especially for bone imaging. Today, we limit the exposure with shielding and precise calibration. CT scans revolutionized imaging by combining multiple X-rays into one detailed image. Think of it like slicing a loaf of bread. You see internal layers clearly. CT is excellent for internal bleeding, tumors, or stroke evaluation, but does come with higher radiation exposure. It produces either a 2D or 3D image using computers. It's great for soft tissues, brain, chest, or your abdomen region. It's started to be more widely used in the 1970s. MRIs don't use X-rays, it uses magnetic fields. This makes it safe for repeated use and great for imaging soft tissues like brain or joints. However, patients must stay till in a usually narrow space, which can be challenging for some. It produces a detailed image of soft tissue and organs, and is high resolution, ideal for brain tumors and spinal cord. The downside, it is very expensive, loud, and you are in an enclosed space for a long period of time. PET scans let us see function, not just structure. By injecting a small radioactive tracer, we can see which part of the brain are active or where a tumor is metabolizing glucose. This is especially useful for cancer care and neurology. Ultrasound is one of the most safest and most common imaging tools. It is used widely in prenatal care, but also in cardiology and abdominal diagnostics. It's portable, non-invasive, and radiation-free, making it ideal in many clinical settings. The downside, the image quality depends heavily on the operator's skill. It cannot penetrate bones or air-filled spaces, and there's no major radiation use, which is why we use it mainly in pregnancy, looking at the heart or blood flow, or looking for certain organs. Let's wrap up by reviewing the key points from Chapter 1. First, we clarify the differences between anatomy and physiology, structure versus function. These two concepts are always linked. Understanding one helps you understand the other. We explored how the body is structured in levels of organization, starting with atoms and molecules, the chemical level on the building, all the way up to the complete or human organ. Each level contributes to the function of the next. We then looked at the 11 major organ systems, each with a specific role, but all working together. For example, muscles depend on the skeletal system for support and on the cardiovascular system for oxygen. A major theme was homeostasis, the body's built-in system for maintaining stability. Using negative feedback loops, your body corrects imbalances like high temperature or low blood glucose levels to keep you alive and functioning. Finally, we introduced medical terminology, the tools that help decode complex terms based on predictable roots, prefixes, and suffixes. This foundational chapter sets the stage for all of the body systems we'll cover next.